I did a little internship for Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce. I did some research on Joe Moore and he's crooked and how he, well, I think he fired this intern and like he paid her off to keep quiet or something. Like he's crooked and like he's about that money, I think. And I think Bill Morton is an active member of the community. He's a middle class citizen. He lives here. He's been on Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce for 15 years. I think he said he's been living in Rogers Park about 16 years. And I don't live in Rogers Park, but I go to Northeastern. I actually go to church in Rogers Park in Devon and Western. So I'm pretty familiar with this neighborhood. I take the red line sometimes, and it's a very vibrant, diverse community. And what I can say about Bill Morton is he cares. He's the real deal. He's genuine. He knows what it's like, to live poor, lower middle class, just like me and most of us. And he knows the struggle, and he wants to help people that are not wealthy and people that are struggling to make ends meet. And he's against, all this gentrification and all this other stuff going on. And he wants to get the violence taken care of in Rogers Park and all this gay activity. And I think Bill Morton would be the ideal candidate. Thank you.
Thank you. We love you, Bill.
Oh, anyone else want to come up? Say a couple words? Come on, Matt. Come on. Now this is a special case here.
Should I call up Joe?
No.
Childhood friend, and showing my support for Bill. Short and sweet.
Yes. And Mabel, when do we meet?
Oh my gosh, I don't remember. 2013 maybe?
I remember we did my 29th birthday party together at Badu Senegale's Cuisine.
It was way before that though.
But it was way before that. You came to the chamber office,
Right.
and we were talking about interns,
Correct.
internships, and then
This would have been after 2012. So it's
Right.
probably 2013.
right. Very cool. Yeah. Good times. Good times. I'd like to introduce Dan Bader.
I can say a few words in support of Bill. I know he is interested in mental health. He gets some of that because he follows my presentation, so I know he's getting it. But I just say some general things. I don't live in Rogers Park, but I worked here from 1998 to 2012 at Northtown Rogers Park Mental Health Center over at Howard Street, closed down in 2012. And I'm very familiar, of course, with the neighborhood. And I think that one of the things I learned about Joe Moore was, and I did like Joe Moore back in, years and years ago. However, during the shutdown of the mental health centers, I learned something about him. He was non-supportive of the arguments to keep the city clinics open, and he was very much in favor of privatizing the clinics. And of course, that to me, at a minimum, indicated he didn't understand a lot of the issues. But moreover, in the city of Chicago, we keep talking about there's gentrification going on. And one of the things that I think is really important is that these neighborhoods get gentrified by real estate developers.
That's right.
And real estate developers look for tax breaks. They look to have City of Chicago tax money essentially finance improvements in infrastructure, etc.
Like the TIF funds?
And then, yeah, like that. And then what they do is they essentially let the real estate developers put up their buildings, their homes, and essentially price them at a price point that middle class and below cannot afford this kind of housing. And the ultimate, it always appeared to me that, Rahm Emanuel's fantasy was we could make Chicago kind of like San Francisco or other places, Seattle, Manhattan, other places where essentially you have nothing but wealthy people who can pay the taxes. You know, very, very high taxes for the special city services that, you know, upper middle class and wealthy people come to expect. And so I do think that, you know, Bill is somebody who genuinely does have, you know, his heart is behind the community, and that means everybody who's a part of Rogers Park. And I think that, you know, maybe as this campaign goes forward, some of the historical issues, you know, that are usually forgotten. So, just final thing and I'll shut up. When we talk about the violence in the neighborhood, we have to realize, you know, I remember when I was growing up in Chicago, and in the late 1960s, for example, and before then, we did not have these kind of huge street gangs that plagued so many areas of the city of Chicago. We just didn't have it. There were a few street gangs. They had one foot in social justice work and the other foot in some underground economy stuff. But they deindustrialized Chicago starting in the 1970s. They started moving the jobs out to states that didn't have union power, you know, in the South and out in the West. And then finally, you know, it kind of evolved into the outsourcing, the essential destruction of the blue-collar, lower middle class, and ultimately a lot of the white-collar middle class in the country. And actually, that's really one of the biggest reasons Donald Trump ever was able to become president, because he seized upon that issue that a lot of other people, you know, don't want to talk about. But in Chicago, it's really critical. Unless these young men are given opportunities to work like they could back in the 1960s and into the 70s. They could just simply go out of high school, they'd go to work in the steel mills when they used to be up on the southeast side, they could go to work in all the factories throughout the city. And that has been stripped away and taken away, and, you know, hopefully Bill and some other progressive candidates and people will understand that you have to be able to give these young men some kind of employment. I often, you know, I know when I'm out in Hyde Park at the University of Chicago, walking around there, they have security guards all over the place. Not only do they have, you know, the university police and the regular police, they actually have security guards standing on all these corners until 2 o'clock in the morning. You know, and why is it? Well, you know, because people want to have some safety around those buildings at night. And I've often wondered why we couldn't have that in, I spend a lot of time out in the 10th Ward, and there's a lot of problems out there. And you know, why can't we have a lot of young men be trained and function as a security guard force in a lot of these neighborhoods, so that you don't have to worry about something happening to you when you get out of your car at 11 o'clock in the evening or later, and this kind of thing. And so I think there's a lot of, we know we need change. Joe Moore represents fundamentally, you know, kind of financial predator interests in the city of Chicago, and he gets the rewards of being that way. So anyway, I hope you do well, Bill, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
And now I'd like to have a moment of silence for the two who were shot over the past 2 days. Bishop James L. Mulkowski was going to say a prayer, but he's got his eye being looked at right now. So he will be saying a prayer where he is. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. And thank you to Pulm and Pub 626 for hosting this for us. We'll have a lot of action items to do.